Before we even get into the shock of what just happened, we need to name names because this story is not abstract. This is not hypothetical. This is about the Social Security Administration. This is about Medicare. This is about Congress, the people who fund it, staff it, and quietly decide how it operates. And yes, this is happening right now, folks. February 2026 under Donald J. Trump. Now, here's the part that should make you stop what you're doing. A switch was flipped, not with a vote you saw, not with a letter you received, not with your permission. Inside the Social Security Administration, decisions that used to require a human being, someone you paid for over decades, they're now being pushed through automatically, quietly, instantly. And once that system makes a decision, your check can change before you even know why. That's the reality, folks. Your benefit amount, your Medicare deductions, your retirement income, all processed faster, all reviewed less, and all done under the excuse of efficiency. Now, they're going to tell you nothing changed. They're going to tell you that it's your responsibility. They'll tell you that they'll tell you to go ahead and check the website. But here's a question nobody's asking out loud. If no one is required to ask you anymore, then who exactly is protecting your check? Now, stick with me, guys, because once you see how this works, you're going to understand why so many Americans are being blindsided and why this didn't happen by accident. If you appreciate the news updates and the Social Security updates, be sure to drop a like for the video and subscribe. Okay, here's what makes this completely unsettling. Nothing exploded. No emergency meeting, no headline saying major change at Social Security. But something did change inside the Social Security Administration. Now, for decades, if your check was about to change, a human being was usually involved. Somebody reviewed it, someone caught the mistakes, someone asked questions before this change happened. That didn't mean that the system was perfect, but there was some friction there. There was a pause, right? And that pause mattered. Now, that pause, it's disappearing. People inside the system are being told to move faster, process more, clear the backlog. And when speed becomes the goal, accuracy quietly moves to second place or the back burner. So this wasn't debated on cable news. This wasn't voted on in a way that you remember. It happened through internal changes most people never see. But you feel it after the fact, when a check is smaller, when a deduction shows up, when something changes and no one warned you first. That's the situation here, guys, because when something this important changes quietly, it usually doesn't end quietly. Okay, let's keep it simple. A human being asks question. A system does not. A human being pauses and says, hey, wait. This looks off a little bit. A system doesn't do that. It just says approved or denied. Inside the Social Security Administration, more decisions are now being routed through automated processing. Now, this is not science fiction. This is not theory. This is workflow. So instead of someone reviewing your situation, the system checks boxes. Yes, no, next. There's no context. There's no phone call to a human being. There's no phone call to you to make sure that, hey, things look weird on our side. Can you validate, before we, make this change? There's no second look. And so here's the part. Here's the key part. Once the system processes your claim, it becomes your responsibility to prove that it was wrong. Even if you never even knew it happened. That's the shift. It's not malicious. It's not dramatic. It's just mechanical. And of course, we don't even want to go into the weeds on what happens when AI, artificial intelligence, gets involved with Social Security. But when the safeguard disappears, the burden flips. And when the burden flips, the risk lands right in your lap. So when systems stop double checking, real people, they feel it. Now, I want to tell you about a woman who thought everything was fine. She had Medicare. She followed the rules. She did what the system told her to do. Then she showed up for a cancer appointment, and her specialist no longer accepted her Medicare plan. No warning, no letter, no phone call. She told me it felt like the floor dropped out from right under her. I mean, think about that for a second. If your plan quietly changes, if no one reviews it, if no one flags the problem early, you wouldn't know either until it mattered the most. And we can agree, right? We can agree that that's not a moment anybody should be blindsided with, right? I mean, that's not even fair. This is exactly why I partner with Chapter. Chapter, they help people review their Medicare coverage before something breaks, before a specialist disappears, before a treatment is suddenly out of network, because And also before you're standing there asking how in the world did this happen while they're asking for $5,000 for a procedure that you thought was covered. So let's be honest, guys. Keeping the doctors that keep you alive matters, right? I mean, we can all agree on that, right? And so this is why so many people are already calling the phone number at the bottom of your screen right there, 909-563-8279. Or they're clicking the link right now down below in the description to go to askchapter.org/Ron just to have someone look at their coverage early while there's still time to fix things. And of course, it's completely free. And when you do call Chapter, tell my friends over there Ron says hello. All right. So this is where people get confused. Because people get confused here, let's just go and slow down just a little bit, okay? Automation, it's not angry. It's not political. It's not cruel. It's just fast. It's real fast. And fast systems don't ask why. They only ask what. And so what box did you check? What income number was reported? What date was entered, right? And that's pretty much it. A human might say, well, this person still works. A system just sees 65 years old. A human might say, they probably don't need this yet. A system says, next step triggered, right? And so speed replaces judgment. Throughput replaces protection. And here's the part nobody tells you. Once automation becomes the default, reversing a mistake is way harder than preventing it, before it ever was. And so, because now you're not correcting a person, you're actually challenging a decision that already moved on. This is why automation feels invisible right up until it hits your wallet, but not because it's evil, not because it doesn't stop itself. Okay. Just because, it's part of the system. And this is where it gets real. Medicare is the clearest example because money just starts moving immediately. Look, you go online, you apply, you click through, and if the system assumes you need coverage, it enrolls you. Now, here's the problem with that. Many people still have coverage through their work. Or maybe they have medical coverage through their spouse or through a large employer plan. Now, in those cases, you don't always need Medicare Part B yet, but the system doesn't ask why you're applying. It doesn't call you. It doesn't say, hey, wait a second. It just assumes. And once it assumes, the premium comes out of your check every single month. Not because someone decided to punish you, but because no one stopped the process. And that's the quiet cost of automation. A click, a deduction, and suddenly your check is smaller with no warning and no explanation for why. Now, I want you to take a breath right here, guys, because I know it's a little much to accept, but it is what it is. All right. And unfortunately, this is where people actually feel the sting, because once the system acts, the answer you hear is almost always the same. Well, I signed up for it. Actually, they'll say, well, you signed up for it because they'll put the blame on you, right? You checked the box. You submitted the form. End of discussion, right? Never mind that there are tens of thousands of pages of rules. Oh, you didn't see this one page on 9,902? Section 14, right? Never mind the old system used to warn people. And of course, you ever deal with any kind of government entity, they're always the most difficult to work with. And all this crazy paperwork is always hard to understand. Never mind that nobody called anymore, right? So the responsibility quietly shifts onto you. And I know it doesn't sound fair at all, but before the government helped you get it right, I mean, back in the day, right? Back in the day, they would help you get it right. But now the government just assumes you already knew. Well, that's a silly assumption. And you know what they say about assuming, right? You know what the first three letters are. Anyway, so if the system enrolls you in something you didn't need, the response isn't, let's fix it. It's usually, well, you should have known. And that's the betrayal people feel right now. I mean, you paid into the system your whole life. You expected guidance. Instead, you get a website and blame. That's not an accident. That's how liability disappears. And so as the same mindset shows up somewhere else in people's lives, it's your mortgage. I mean, think about it. 30 years, 3 decades, month after month after month, and most people don't even question it anymore. And they just accept it. You signed the paperwork. You knew the terms. That's just how it works, right? Does all that sound familiar to you guys? And so that mortgage payment quietly becomes the biggest bill in your life. It limits what you can save. It limits what you can invest. It also limits how much freedom you actually have. And so here's the part nobody ever explains. You do not have to be trapped in a 30-year mortgage. Did anybody know that? folks, I am teaching people how to eliminate their mortgage in just a few years, not with gimmicks, not with risky moves, not with complicated math. A very simple, clear 4-step system that shows you how to redirect money you're already using, how to attack the principal strategically, how to shorten the timeline without blowing up your life. Oh, and once you see this, you'll probably ask the same question everybody else asks. Why did nobody ever show me this before? Now, if you're tired of that massive monthly burden hanging over your head, make sure to click the link down below to get your mortgage eliminator access today and learn how the system works. You don't need permission to take control over your house. You just need a plan. All right. Now, let's talk about the most vulnerable group, shall we? People filing for disability. These are not simple cases. I'm talking doctors, medical records, work history, children who may qualify for benefits. All of that takes time. But time is exactly what's being cut. Employees are now under pressure to move faster. Appointments are shorter. Cases are rushed. Oh, and if it's too complicated, too bad. Next person, right? Not because workers don't care, but because the system doesn't allow care anymore. They just phased out care. And so when a disability claim is rushed, mistakes aren't small. They're life-changing. A missed detail, that could mean months, even years without income. And so this isn't about efficiency. This is about what happens when speed becomes more important than people. Now, this part really scares people once they understand it. Retirement choices are timing choices, okay? And timing mistakes don't bounce. If you file too early, your check is smaller permanently. If you file on the wrong record, spousal instead of survival, how about own benefit instead of higher option? Yeah, once it's processed, it sticks. Now, in the old days, a human would slow this thing down. They would say, let's walk through this together, shall we? They'd say, let's flag missing earning years. They would ask about kids under 18 years old, disabled children, yada, yada, yada. Now, if the system accepts it, well, the system moves on. There's no rewind. There's no oops. There's no reset button. And here's a quiet danger. Most people don't even realize that they made a mistake until years later when it's too late to fix it. Now, that's not panic talk. It's just math. And a small error at the start, it becomes a lifetime cut. Now, here's the phrase that you're going to hear more and more. Auto-adjudication. Anybody ever hear that yet? It sounds harmless, sounds technical, but all it means is this. The system decides and that decision stands. Does that even sound fair to you? That completely sounds unfair to me. No human review, no follow-up call, no pause. If something's missing, if someone was misunderstood, if the system guessed wrong, too bad. Because now you have to prove that the system messed up. And proving that takes all sorts of time and paperwork, appeals, waiting. You ever do an appeal? Unbelievable. And so most people, they don't even know where to start. And that's the trap. Not because the system is malicious by design, but because once it moves, it doesn't look back. And the faster it moves, the easier it is for mistakes to quietly become permanent. So here's where we essentially pull the curtain back. This is not even happening in some vacuum. The Social Security Administration, or SSA, it doesn't decide its own fate. It doesn't decide how many people it can hire. It doesn't decide how much time workers are allowed to spend with you. That power sits with Congress, budgets, staffing levels, policy direction. So when funding gets tighter, something has to give. And what gives first usually isn't technology. It's the people. Fewer workers means shorter calls. Shorter calls means more automation. And more automation means fewer second chances. No villains here, no secret meeting, and just cause and effect. When lawmakers starve a system, the system adapts and the public absorbs the consequences later. This is how you end up with changes that are this big happening quietly. And they're big changes, and they're happening right now. Now, I want to zoom out just for a second because this pattern, it's not new. Step 1, make service frustrating. They're really good with step 1. Step 2, let mistakes pile up. And step 3, let's not forget this, watch public trust collapse. And so then comes the question that people are nudged toward asking, which is, why did we just let someone else handle this? right? Why don't we just let somebody else handle this? And this is when you start hearing names like Wall Street and private accounts and market solutions, not because they're safer, but because frustration makes people desperate for anything else but whatever we're dealing with right now. And that's not predication. This is history. So what I'm saying here, it's not like I have some crystal ball and I'm making a prediction. This is history, guys. Systems don't get privatized when they work well. They get privatized when people are worn down enough to give up on them. And I almost wonder if this is part of the plan. Like, make it so frustrating to deal with that people give up and people are begging for Social Security to be privatized, And so this is why automation without the safeguards isn't neutral. It shapes the future quietly. And this is also where a lot of people get blindsided. I mean, they hear stuff like, well, most seniors don't pay taxes on Social Security. Do y'all think that's true? They hear you can earn money and still collect Social Security. Anybody believe that? Disagree? Both are technically true and still get you into trouble. Now, here's why. The IRS looks at gross income, not what you kept, not what you put into a retirement account, not what you donated. They want to know what you earned. So if you're under full retirement age and work, the system counts it. If you cross a line that you didn't realize was there, money can be withheld, not later, not after a warning, automatically. This is why people wake up shocked. They didn't do anything wrong. They just didn't know the rules changed underneath them. I know it doesn't sound fair. I agree. So now we end up basically where this all lands. This is not about fear. It's about awareness. A system that used to slow down is speeding up. A system that used to explain is assuming. A system that used to ask permission, it doesn't ask anymore. And that leaves one question that's hanging in the air. If no one is required to ask you before your check changes, if no one is required to double check anymore, then who exactly is watching your check for you, right? That's the question every American needs to sit with tonight. Because once you see how this works, you don't unsee it. Drop a like for the video, subscribe, share this with someone who's on Social Security or Medicare who needs to hear this. And we'll see you on the next video.